when is it hitting the shop back? This is the question I have to pretty much every single one of my streams concerning the Chieftain MK6. Bonjour everyone, Pantoufleee here today to answer a question most of you are asking: when will we see the Chieftain MK6 again? But before answering that, we are going to take a look at what this tank abilities are and especially why it's so popular. Because if you take a look at any streams of any Blitz YouTuber, everybody all the time is asking, where is the Chieftain? Please play the Chieftain, etc, etc. But why is that? In my opinion, there are two things that are making the Chieftain one of the most popular tier 10 ever. First thing first, it's premium status. Obviously, it's one of the few premiums at tier 10 that actually has the premium status. Because if we take a look, for example, at the M60, you also have the premium status, or at least it seems like it has it. But when you play with it, you will never do any credits. Whereas when you play with the Chieftain, you can make shit tons of credits, which makes it quite an interesting tank to play. And on top of that, the second factor is that this tank is literally amazing. Amazing for multiple reasons. The first one, it's gun. This is one of the few guns at tier 10 that is excellent to play with because it features a great accuracy but also some fun factor. When I'm talking about fun factor, I'm talking especially about your HE shell that are featuring 110mm of penetration, which means that with this tank, if you encounter the side armor of any medium tank at tier 10 or even the back of some heavies or tank destroyers, you will be able to inflict quite a lot of damage because your HE penetration your HE alpha damage, is 515, which is literally insane. On top of that, 10 degrees of gun depression, which makes that tank extremely versatile on every single terrain. And on top of that, once more, the fact that you're low profile, which makes your tank, even if you only have 10 degrees on paper, having like 12 degrees in practice when you play with it because of how low that tank is, which makes it the perfect tank to play aggressively. Now you have an amazing turret armor, an amazing upper plate armor, and obviously a good mobility. So you have yourself the perfect tank to carry every single one of your games, and that's what we are going to try to find out right now. Let's answer the main question. When is the Chieftain MK6 going to come back? As you all know, from time to time I know what tanks are coming into the shop. But when it comes to the Chieftain, the information is so secure that nobody really knows when the tank will hit the shop. So I can't tell you with certitude or guarantee that yes, this tank will hit the shop exactly at this date, at this hour specifically. All I can tell you is that it's an extremely rare tank nowadays. I remember the first time it was introduced, it was in crates, if I'm not mistaken, it was for 5% chances, something like that, and you didn't have the charm, so you have to gamble again and again and again in hope to get the tank in your garage. It was not necessarily a bad thing due to how broken the tank seems to be in the right hands, but kind of unfair for others or for people that managed to get it in only the first crate. After Wargaming changed their mind concerning that tank, I knew that this tank would hit the shop for gold, and it happened. It happened in 2020, and if I'm not mistaken, it was for around 20k gold. Even if it seems quite a lot for most players, I think it's a regular and fair price due to how good that tank is. You could literally only get one premium in your garage and never get bored of it, and this one would be either the Smasher or, in my opinion, the Chieftain MK6. I know that with the release of the AMX M454, that seems to be a better tank overall due to multiple factors that we're not going to talk about right now. Wargaming will, in the future, make that tank more affordable and more accessible because, as we all know, Wargaming is following a pattern. Every time they release a new premium tank, it has to be better than the previous one to give envy to their players to buy it, which means that we are in a not ending cycle of brokenness that is never gonna stop. But the Chieftain had been in the game for 2 years by now, and in 2 years I've never seen any single tank outpass that tank. Maybe the Super Conqueror when it comes to hull down, due to the small cupola you have on the Chieftain, which can be trolled and can be penetrated quite easily with HE if your enemies have the right accuracy, which is not the case, for example, of the Super Conqueror. But even beside that, as the Super Conqueror doesn't have the same mobility as the Chieftain, it's not replacing the tank. But what I want to say is, you could expect the Chieftain MK6 pretty soon. Not necessarily in April, but most of the time when this tank is released for the second time in the year, because if I'm not mistaken, it was released one time already in the form of crates. But we could expect the tank to hit directly the shop during the holidays, the great holidays, the summer holidays. Why? Because when Wargaming is releasing that tank in a direct bundle for either gold or money, they have to take something into consideration. They don't want too many people to get it, because if they do, the matchmaking is going to be flooded with that tank, which is extremely good. On top of that, you got to remind yourself one thing about the Chieftain, and especially about summer holidays. That's the time of the year where we have less and less people playing, because we all go out, going to the beach, etc, etc, which makes it harder for people to get the tank because they are not logged in 24/7. And that's why this is the time of the year where Wargaming is releasing all the broken tanks, because they know they will sell them for a high price without having too much of them being implemented on the battlefield at the same time. So if you're looking to get a Chieftain MK6 in a direct bundle without having to gamble or anything like that, I would advise you to check regularly your shop in World of Tank Blitz when it's summertime. Now, what about the playstyle of that tank? It's really simple, and that's why it makes it a great tank. All you gotta do is being held down. As long as your enemies only see your turret and your 10 degrees of gun depression, you should be safe. Try when you're reloading to wiggle from time to time to avoid getting penetrated in your cupola, as I told you, but if you do that, you shouldn't struggle too much, which increases the popularity of that tank. It's not the kind of tank with which you will have to have a lot of skill to be able to be effective on the battlefield. No, all you have to do is knowing the hold down position, and you can learn them quite easily by taking a look at some YouTube tutorials, etc, etc. And I think that's why this tank is more popular, for example, than an AMX M454, because overall, to me, the AMX M454 is a better tank than the Chieftain MK6, but it requires much more skill to make it effective. Which is why a lot of people will tell you that the Chieftain MK6 is still the GOAT of heavy tanks at tier 10. It's not the case for skilled players, or at least not my case, but that's an argument I can understand. Now, what makes that tank more fun? Because that's the point. This tank is more fun than the MX M454 for one simple reason. As I told you, the 110mm of HE penetration. And that's where you gotta focus on the tank itself, and that's where you're gonna have quite a lot of fun. One last thing, maybe the shell velocity, which is insane on that tank compared to the MX M454, but overall, the HE shell, guys. The HE shells on this tank are something else. I know when you acquire a tank at tier 10, most of the time you are not going to focus too much on shooting with HE. You're trying to penetrate your targets. But when you get used to the Chieftain MK6 and knowing where this 110mm of HE can effectively penetrate the enemies, you will have even more fun with it due to the number of damage you will pack. This is insane. This is exactly why we love the Chief, and this is also why Wargaming is not releasing too much Chieftains at the same time, by either forcing you to gamble or making it, or putting it in high-priced bundle, either for gold or money. You're lucky, guys, for those of you who joined the game right now. Back in the days when you had to buy a broken tank, you had to pay for money. But it seems like when it comes to the Chieftain, as Wargaming already released it a couple of times through gold bundles, maybe if you manage to acquire quite a lot of gold through ads, events, etc., you will be able to afford that tank completely for free. Yes, it's gonna take you quite a lot of time to get it, but in the end, is it worth it? Yes, it is. I could never tell you that the Chieftain MK6 is not worth it, except maybe if Wargaming released it for 500 euros. Here, that's just money wasted. But for a good price, around even 75 euros, I would tell you that yes, this tank is worth it and you want to acquire it in your garage. Hopefully you enjoyed that video, guys. If that's the case, feel free to subscribe, like, and share, and I'm gonna see you soon for a new one. Bye.